Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your mayor of Abbotsford. That's well documented as I make it go forward. I'm interviewing people that want to run for council now. I've had quite a few interviews of what you can do for your city. But the first thing we're going to do, make no mistake, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to be met with a lot of losers, complete losers, is remove the Abbotsford Police for its organized crime. We're going to go in there like there's no tomorrow. We're going to drop bunker buster bombs, and we're going to clean out the veterans. We're going to clean out the task force, and we're going to clean up Abbotsford. That's the first thing. And the first thing we're going to do is get the RCMP and work with the federal government to bring them in to overrule the province of the backroom deals what's going on. Why? Why can I stand on the world stage and say that? When Henry Brown took the mayorship with his son and his family, it was to fraud Abbotsford taxpayers, set up the official community plan, and every meeting that he sat on Monday night, you could see him stepping off because of conflict of interest because he owns shares with his partners. Darren Brown, who was his son, the economic development officer, you could see him loading that. My partner now will fast track it. How is that going to be done? When Darren showed me he had the majority of city councils called Abbotsford First, which was Ross Siemens Slate and Dave Lowens, and left the independent councillor like Les Barkman, Councillor Mogel, who Henry scandaled through using his friends at the Abbotsford newspaper. But let me explain something very clearly. When Henry was involved in the scam of knocking homeowners' houses and my house off the mountain rather than go after the development, he didn't. He took advantage of the city chair for his financial gain with his friends. He was blackjacking each person in the corner, and you could see that. Rather than go after the contractor and hold the contractor responsible, he didn't, because he stood now to be on the world stage, hauled out, and then that would be criminal investigations. He needed to use his people and the people in the Abbotsford Police, and that there would have then helped Henry cover it up. Henry Brown lost control. He got in the car and I released the 911. He came to a protest. He hit and ran me, fled in his Lexus car. You can clearly hear the Abbotsford switchboard online talking to me thanks to the RCMP. They got that audio really fast. And she's telling you to stay put. Abbotsford Police were on their way. When Mike Sir heard, the police chief heard that it was Henry Brown, he ordered his detachment not to come up there. So Henry could finish the term to load everything. And basically blocking the general community so nothing would be going for the court. Then he ordered his Abbotsford Police not to follow up. Don't go to the hospital when them calls are been phoned in, because you know when you phone 911 and you hang up, the police come and check on you. Then they insisted to threaten me when I was pushing forward to come forward with the charges. Thanks to the Mission RCMP, tremendous man, this is on the world stage. We're gonna get rid of that. Then Henry knew when I ran for mayor, he needed his Abbotsford task force, the men that are undercover, to circle my house and my job sites, and you'll never be questioned. We're gonna gut the Abbotsford Police. Them men are gonna lose their jobs. That's no if, buts, or maybe. If not, right now, I suspect, in my opinion, there must be forensic audits and investigations, probably by the Police Complaints Commission, because you see Abbotsford Police laying down on their hands. This is organized crime. This is what everybody fears. Henry went in to own this city. Today, I'm on South Fraser, here, highway. What are I doing on South Fraser? Mission Council went after Paul Horn for Paul Horn doing a backroom deal. Jug Gill, I believe, went after him for doing a backroom deal for $35 million without going to the general community or having a public hearing or even sitting and having an open dialogue hearing at council. He rammed it through. When Henry Brown knew that the official community plan would be uprooted by Manji Sohi or myself, because I knew what his son told me, how he's lining up all these jobs and getting them ready to go, Ron Funkadiverse, changing the zoning without going back to a public hearing from 200 to 400 because Ron Funkadiverse was his partner and he stood to gain. We need to get Sage up and sold, and then we'll do the Vaquero Ranch, and then we'll build all the high-rises downtown from the official community plan. Was that obvious from Darren Braun? Henry needed Ross Siemens on that sat on the meeting that caused them homes. Then he loaded to fraud and block and manipulate the election so Ross could get in because he was in too much trouble. You can see how scared Ross is. He makes no public appearances. He runs and hides everywhere he can, basically hanging on. Henry assured him through the Abbotsford newspaper and Vicky hoped she wouldn't be scandaled. Not scandaled on dumping your gas station in the aquifer, which is contaminated soil. Not scandaled with Dave Sidhu. You'll be well protected, Ross. You'll be really well protected by the billionaire, Henry Braun. You knew when Henry stood on the dike to bully Trudeau without the MLAs and MPs, it was for Henry to get the money. You knew when Henry got these guys all to back Mike de Jong in the election, the four leaders of Abbotsford, it was to get Mike in to cover up in investigations and hold the RCMP out of Abbotsford. No South Asians were endorsing Mike or nothing. The scandal on Suk Mangen. This was considered politics, threatening residents and everything. But it was led by Abbotsford's police department. Abbotsford's top investigators believe that their uniform and their shields and their garbage and they're manipulating, and Abbotsford can't believe without a police force. Make no mistake that I'm not here about taking a police force out. I'm giving a police force the best to Abbotsford. That there will give you your city back, and it'll give you everything back, and there won't be insider trading, conflict of interest, and threats and blocks in elections, because we'll have the best, the RCMP, and they're long overdue to come into Abbotsford, and you could clearly see that. Abbotsford police smashing my phone, smashing my camera, threatening me to drop videos and everything. That's panic mode by the great leader. Watts doesn't come out and confront it and say, I got dirty officers, we need to talk to all the witnesses. I'll just hide and keep bellying aching on to the RCMP. Then Abbotsford police now got a rape victim detachment, really. That's really going to help. Everything we can to confront this stupid garbage trash man that run around telling African Americans they're not in the park. Block Councillor Mogill with the task force so he couldn't run and threaten this campaign. This was a white-collar crime, and it needs to be called out, and it needs every South Asian involved in it. That's why I'm running for you, man. When this $12.4 million backroom deal was done by Ross Siemens and council, it wasn't before the Abbotsford residents. So what they did under the official bylaws, Darren Brown was showing me when he was still in the city, is if you take a certain amount of money, 30 or 40 million or 12 million, you got to go to the general public. But if you split that money in half, and you say out of the 30 million, half for a police department, half for the fire department, then it fits under the official bylaw, and then you can put it all together, just like Paul Horn's trying to do in Mission. That's what he's trying to do, put it all together. This $12.4 million was stolen without coming to you, where you were paying high premium taxes. High premium taxes. In return, Ross would get all the votes because he was with Abbotsford First. Mark Warkentine, they ran him. The city councillor, which owns Ed's old practice, is a land corporation. When he was in England, Abbotsford First ran his whole campaign. Sandy Blue did his speeching for him and everything. Dave Sidhu, who ran Ross Siemens, in return, Andy Sidhu on Tracy Road gets his property sold to a big developer that's going to do tilt-ups and warehouse, take it from ag, from ALR to industrial. All friends of friends of friends of friends. You saw Quantum Projects, Marcus Delvis, who ran Dave Sidhu, ran Ross, going to get a 30-story tower here in Abbotsford. This $12.4 million was frauded at Abbotsford residents. It's absolutely fraud. Without consulting, aiding the general community or going back to the community. This is when I went to the premiers and MLAs and said, Abbotsford's long overdue. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to take small business licenses and we're going to waive them. We're going to go down after the Business Association, the Corps. We're going to gut the city staff that works around Abbotsford, and you saw it. I showed you all the city workers on your tax dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars frauded out of the city workshop. I showed you the Abbotsford police on Canada Day, how they were frauding, running around in cop cars, millions and millions of dollars, and this was considered Henry's army and Henry's friends, rush my jobs. You saw the 71 million stolen, and then the cost overruns of $12 million. We're going to go after it because it's the same city council that signed the $12 million cost overrun for the Abbotsford police that should have said, wait a minute, you guaranteed me you could build this building, now I'm going to hold you accountable. They didn't. We'll give you the $12 million, then you get us some free kickbacks, which are all hidden behind the scene. Then you give this company, Unitech, which is a bum company now, other schools to do when it can't manage this. This is friends of friends of friends. This is why Mogel said where there was smoke, there was fire. Mogel was a struggling South Asian, and Henry knew that he could block him because he didn't have the voice of other people beside him and say, wait a minute, because they were in Henry's establishment. And everything Ross Siemens does, you can see Dave Lowen's tweeting it out. When I learned from Darren Braun, Ed Fast and Mike DeYoung were covering it, I had time with Abbotsford residents and the great Bill Vanderzam people that helped him to set up to come in from the outside in and go after it. But we make no mistake, we have to and we must get rid of the Abbotsford police. No matter what story they come out every day about, we got 20 drinking drivers. They raced our off the road. And we're going after gangs. They raced our Dodge Chargers, but they covered up attempted murder for one of their richest, elite friends, Henry Brown, that was tied to political politicians. That man got in his car and proceeded to a protest after he asked the Abbotsford police to remove it to end my life. The Abbotsford police clearly blocked it. Then they held him up by not going forward with charges, what the RCMP knew, so Henry could finish his term to load Ross Siemens for the scam. The city bank account was a temptation, and he couldn't refuse it. And then he lobbied all his friends in here. Under my mayorship, we're going to go after Ross Siemens. We're going to go forensic audit, like Darren Brown said. If there's ever a forensic audit in the city, people are going to jail. And that was Henry's own son. So I knew when I ran for mayor to come in with a forensic audit. This $12.4 million was stolen out of your bank account and was done illegally. And we're going to go after that. We're going to go after Dave Sidhu, Andy Sidhu's property, because in return, Andy Sidhu had to block me at UFB, have me threatened at UFB to pull out of the election and everything. In order for him to lose his job as the chancellor, he had to be rewarded. You sell my property, you get it to a zoning, you get it to Tilltops, and you build me a new house, and that's what Dave Sidhu was doing, and he sat on them to decisions. Without Darren Brown's insight and help, Abbotsford residents would probably be right now ran under a massive dictatorship by the Abbotsford Police Department. This is worse than gangs. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, as I stand on the world stage now, thanks to the RCMP, and kick the crap out of Colin Watts and his detachment and his elite investigators, they got no comeback. The only thing they're hoping is my uniform, and you can't let us go, really. Telling African-American kids, your white-collar crime officers, that they're not allowed in the park after hours because they're black. Telling the councillor Mogel and threatening him because he's South Asian because Henry did it. This is all set up by Henry Brown for millions of dollars. This is bigger than the drug industry that runs fentanyl through Abbotsford. And you could see it. You could see crime drop off of Abbotsford. Remember Bob Rich and Mike Seary? They used to go fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl on the homeless. When Rob Santiago got caught stealing the flood money, which I'm going to go after with the RCMP, and we're going to bring prosecutors in and we're going to prosecute these people. We're not going to let Ross Siemens just quit and flee and get out of here. Like his dad said, if he didn't make it, he was going back to China to be a missionary. We're not going to let that happen this time. We're going to go after these people with the law, and we're going to bring them out. They had an obligation and a sworn duty, and they took advantage of that sworn duty for their friends. That is why them rocks down on Gladys Avenue were hauled there on your tax dollars. It wasn't about the homeless. It was to deflect, we'll blame the homeless. That way we could cut the tree of hope down, and we'll use the city to do it. And nobody will be screaming and yelling because of that sacred tree. And the city can do it, and we won't be punished. These were all friends of friends. Rob Isaac and them were doing it. The city staff were teaching me and showing me that if the city cuts the tree of hope down, nobody will go to jail, and Rob Funk will get what he wants to get that tree of hope out of there. And this is what they were doing, so they could get them sewer and services to that illegal job site. We're going to go after that job site. David Eby's quite known as the NDP of going after illegal operations and clubhouses and this. And we're going to go after them. And we're going to go after them hard. But we know now, through Darren Brown's eyes and Darren Brown's information, that it went right up the top. And it was in the Abbotsford Police. Why do we want the RCMP? Why? Without the RCMP, Abbotsford residents would have been threatened and brutalized and kicked with their families. Without the RCMP's knowledge and information, Abbotsford wouldn't have known this. Without the RCMP's help, Abbotsford wouldn't have stood up. They were basically like counselors to the Abbotsford residents and to the victims. Without the RCMP, nobody would have had a chance in Abbotsford. Henry would have run a dictatorship with his mob. To Colin Watts, hiding behind the uniform, using the company, and manipulating and trying to get all your friends you can, which I'll watch. You'll be phoning the RCMP, can you come in and work with us, do this and that, and probably ties out of Victoria. It's not the way to solve the problem. The way to solve the problem is own it. Own the problem. Go up and talk to the witnesses, and now get rid of all your team and rebuild. You either rebuild the police department or I come in, they're all gone. So make it clear in your briefing. Colin Watts, as Abbotsford's mayor, will tell you, and I'm going to tell you clearly. Your guys that went out on them Laverick paychecks, that were undercover officers and used them as manipulation in the police force and got big pay raises, went and bought Laverick houses. When I come in, they're cut. If they're a $200,000 a guy or a $400,000 a guy or $170,000, you're let go from the team. So I would tell them to start tightening up, be frugal, start selling your houses because it's adamant. You got to be let go off the force. And that's what you're going to do. And the first thing I'm going to do is sit down with Surrey and make sure none of these men get transferred into that private police department you're cutting, you're let go. And that's what we're going to do. The Ross Siemens. This is what the city staff been helping me with, and the city people in the city after they saw what you did and covered Henry's hit and run. There is no if, buts, or maybe. An Abbotsford judge said to me, nobody's above the law, Mr. Pelican. Nobody can use the law and no one can bend it. And no one thinks at the end, they only think at the beginning of basically what they could steal. We're going to go after Henry Braun, the man that set it up, the engine. He's the engine of the whole thing. Take him out of the picture and everybody collapses, and you can see it. There will be no more releases for the Abbotsford police. There will be no more help from Ross Siemens. Rob Funk's struggling. You see Marcus Dalvis. You see Dave Lowens. You can see them all. He was the single engine of setting it all up. Rick Rakes and everybody else. And we're going to go after that, and we're going to go after it big because it was organized crime. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm live. South Fraser Highway here in Abbotsford, BC, by Rona.